What I'd like to do next is introduce to you Mr. Joseph Makkos, the proprietor of Language Foundry, that is bringing this to print for us. And he will, you ready, Joseph?
Oh, I'm always ready.
Okay, it's yours, dude. Thank you very much.
Andy, can you put a light? Or bring microphone stand to this page. Something that everyone should always remember is that you're in the piece right now. Every time I read in this place, I get a feeling that lots of people have read in this place before me, and then I realize that I belong. But only because of that. Only because of that fact. Is that I haven't read. I wasn't the first one to read here, and I won't be the last one ever to read here, and that lots of people read here before me. I heard that these guys were part of the first reading that was ever here under the current proprietors. And I think there's a recognition that needs to take place for me as a younger practitioner of performance, language, aesthetics, thought, founding, refinding, mining the underground of what is here in the history of Cleveland poetics, Cleveland performance art, Cleveland thought, Cleveland forward movement. These things are important because I realize that I'm not the one who is starting this. You know, I need to kill all my heroes off as well. And that's important. The only way you can do that is to go into them, go into what they know, go into what they've done, and subsume and become part of it. Because that's what I want to be done to me when I'm no longer here. Or when I'm, you know, a little older, meeting up with Cleveland poets at the pencil factory in Brooklyn or whatever Mike and I did a few weeks ago. You know, I want to be subsumed by people who come after me. So in the spirit of performance, and in the spirit of actually, in the spirit of sort of being in the middle, you know, that's something that I see these guys is kind of doing, is that if you want to do something new, you don't call it something that everyone else called it. You call it something different. Okay? The book we're putting out, the letters, it's an epistle. Okay? It's an epistle. That's what it is. It's an epistolary form. It's letters written from one to the next, sharing thoughts, sharing experiences, and passing those things on. Knowing that the person themselves that's writing these letters, they don't own those experiences. They're not owned. They're to be given. And they're to be perpetually given. That's why we're putting it here and then giving it to everyone. That's the idea. And that should always be the idea. It's not about what I did. It's about what we can all understand in the middle. Not a place of definition, but a place where we can all understand things a little more clear, sometimes without words and sometimes with action, and sometimes with movement, and sometimes with motion, and sometimes with anger and frustration. But we don't have to name the feelings. And that's what I think Frank and Mike do, is they don't name the feelings, they just talk through them, because that's where we need to be. So here's a piece. That was a piece. We're in a piece. You are all part of the piece. You are all recording different parts of the piece. And we all know that. But sometimes we need to be reminded. Without revealing the fruits of our spiritual labors, we are nothing more than bodies around a dinner table. He says all his work is for nothing. She says that the motivation is lost. He says, why not do them all? She says these lies have all been told. He says she is of her own free will. She says it was nothing more short of deceit. He says maybe I can bring her this fire. She says she's exposed to the wind. He says he wears a ring on his finger. She says it all has to be open. He says no one has any love for him. She says that the next drink's on her. He says he cannot understand their ways. She says she had it mostly drawn out. He says that this time is the last time he gives in. She says she has no dependence. He says she sees waters rising up. She says that nothing impresses. He says she was being convenient. She says he wasn't paying attention. He says the roles were reversed. She says his eyes were misleading. He says it only happened twice. She says it all meant nothing. He says it's all about creation. She says the fault lies with him. He says he's casted his weaknesses aside. She says her approaches are honest. He says the obvious is visible. She says his advances were quick. He says the memes are transparent. She says his ethics are opaque. He says the timing was off. She says just a little while longer. He says, why can't it be just like this? She says she's looking for her friends. He says his aesthetics are unyielding. She says she'll be right over. He says he won't be home. She says the night is for resting. He says that darkness speaks truths. She says material will suffice. He says her weaknesses are visible. She says his language is attractive. She says her messages are unreliable. She says the experience was worth it. He says her leaf is not the river. She said it is worth the price she paid. He says the allegory is painful. She says the surgery will be quick. He says the winter is mild. She says she can't wait for the mail. He says he has a new thing coming soon. She says she's looking for someone new. He says he used to be a god. She says her dreams are alarming. He says the fault is with defining. She says that everything is tragic. She says he's gathering weapons. She says the time is for this time is for good. He says this music is perfect. She says she wants someone new. He says he's on his way out. She says that living is easy. She says that he's lost his way home. She says tonight you can't sleep here. He says he won't get to know her. She says the distance is needed. He says the differences are strong. She says that he never listened. He says that she never spoke. She says that he was always available. He says that the chakras aren't open. She says that she needs something for completing. He says that he'd leave her forever. She says it never happened like that. He says he remembers her crying. She says the choices are wrong. He said he could have done better. She says she remembers the past much different. He says the reasoning is pointless. She says she might be late. He says that he has more to offer. She says that she is done with all of them. He says he doesn't believe her. She says he's not to be trusted. He says she never admits to it. She says she's wanting a chance at it. He says he's already tired. She says if she could just say one more thing. He says he's finally convicted. She says she was wrong through a phase. He says he learned it the hard way. She says the work is nicer. He says the better is the beginning. She never presented the idea. She says the consistency is flawed. She said the commitment was questioned. He says the love was forced. She said that she was often quite lonely. He says pretentious as in. He says the matter of the clue. He says we've lost his feelings. Those his appearances are practical. Send him as soon as the patience. Where is the student going to? What is the student but here? She says the idea was good. He says it doesn't trust it. What does it matter? Does it matter? What if we continue the thought? She says, he says, 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 she says, her, he says, he, his, he, she says, she, he says, her. We can leave that lamp on for a while, I think.
Yeah, let's do that.
What's a green book?
You guys are reading straight through?
No, go ahead.
Yes, good.